of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. You may be seated. All right, next on our agenda is approval of the agenda as presented.
Second.
All right, motion by Mr. Russum and seconded by Mr. Brightnell. All in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, the same sign. Motion carries 5-0. Next is announcements. Ms. Jacobson.
I do not have any.
Nor do I. So we will now move to new business. Item 1, authorize the mayor to sign the contract for preliminary engineering services with Heath and Lineback on the sidewalk project with TAP grant funding and city match 80/20. Any comments from staff?
This is what was approved. We did the RFQ, and according to GDOT standards with getting your engineer to do the preliminary engineering, of course, all services, you have to submit an RFQ, not an RFP. It is based on qualifications, not on prices. Therefore, after going through the rigorous process the last year, Josh and I have been working with our GDOT consultant, and Heath and Lineback is the one that has come out on top as far as issuing the services for preliminary engineering, and Carrie has reviewed the contract and approved it.
Any questions?
I'm assuming that anywhere it says Department of Public Works is referring to Temple. Correct?
Any other questions, comments?
Yeah, so let me just clarify, we have to use this Heath and Lineback because of what? Why didn't we have options?
So there's different ways that you can bid out with the state. There's request for proposals, which is price-based, and there's request for qualifications. And through GDOT, through our LAP certification, we have to use the request for qualifications. This ensures that we don't end up in some situations. These are people who are qualified to get the project done, and they are state pricing as well.
Okay, so we don't get a better deal if there were somebody else that was qualified?
Well, we could, but they wouldn't be on the state pricing list for qualifications. Am I saying that right, Josh?
Yeah, this process is basically the engineering phase of it. The construction phase of it, you would certainly put out an RFP, and receive quotes that way. But with this process, we put out the RFQ. I think we received 3 to 4 different parties that were interested. They had to send certain documents that GDOT requires to be sent, and then we had to go through and do and analyze each one of them. And there's a point system and all of this thing based upon all the different parameters that they have to meet, and that selects the overall best candidate. And then they have to basically do everything to state contracted prices. So no matter what, in order to receive these funds, it has to go through that process. And we have to use one of those, any of those who put in for the project, but all of them have to go through the state contracted pricing.
So were there more than one that was qualified?
There were 3 that were qualified, but based on the rating system, this was the most qualified.
Okay, so in the future, I'd like to see all 3 just for decision-making processes, but I understand that I guess we're up against a timeline. Is that why it's tonight and we didn't get it in the committee?
The others did not, we didn't receive any pricing from them. So the selection is based upon different criteria such as, experience, references. There was a whole, it's a
You
long
have-
process.
You
so-
have to weed them out and take the top, then take the top one that comes out of that, correct?
Right.
Yes, so,
Okay.
so we had to go through and they were weeded out by GDOT's order of review. And then one would fall off and we'd have two remain, and then the other one would fall off, and because of the criteria we had to look at.
And then once you select your best qualified based on that criteria, they then come back and, you know, with the pricing on everything. And if you don't like the pricing, you can go, you know, you can go back to some of the others if they meet all of the things that they have to meet, but some of them really didn't. And then GDOT, in order to keep that process fair, they have basically state contracted amounts. So, you know, not to exceed, which basically makes it kind of a level playing field, you know, for that
Process.
selection process of that. One's not gonna be able to charge, you know, way more than the other. It just gives you us the opportunity, and it's GDOT uses the same process themselves, when they're selecting someone for these engineering purposes. It just allows, the local municipality or GDOT, whomever, to select the overall best, candidate.
It was a requirement we had to do.
Not based on pricing,
Okay,
because the pricing is more or less kind of gonna be set by them.
okay.
And I
And-
think this list that the state compiles is one that they put their stamp of approval on whoever's on that list.
Right.
And in fact, you can bypass some of the RFP requirements if you select contractors that they have identified on that list in various things that you're trying to do.
And then are we up against a time frame? Is that why it's tonight?
Yes.
Why didn't we bring it to the
Yes.
committee? Okay.
If we approve it, I would still like to get a fee schedule.
Okay, that's all I
Anything
have.
else?
No, that's all I have.
All right?
I
And
make a
what-
motion, we authorize the mayor to sign the contract.
Second.
All right, motion by Mr. Brightnell, seconded by Mr. Walden. Any other discussion? All in favor of the motion, let it be known saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, the same sign. Motion carries 5-0. Item 2, receive information on the annual liability insurance renewal from Mr. Preston Hagler with Marsh McLennan Agency. Mr. Hagler.
Appreciate y'all's time this evening. I had talked to Lisa earlier. It seemed like there were a few things we needed to get changed, simple stuff from like a certain lot not being on there or it being under a different name. We got all that adjusted. We did talk about, I'm gonna call it the maintenance facility, if you will, over there on Montgomery Street and how the value had changed. We've already gotten that corrected. And I wrote over there in essence, took a picture and sent it to the underwriter and said, this is not $300 a square foot, right? So they agreed, they've already put it back at the expiring value, which was 600-ish thousand, which actually the bottom line number off the property will come down $1,075 from there. But when talking to Lisa, it sounded like there may be a few questions, and I'm glad to answer those, and then to kind of work backwards, if anyone has any. Because I think, I don't know if everyone had time to review it or not.
No, I didn't.
No? Okay.
If you want to go over the summary, I'd appreciate that.
That's
but
what-
also- Okay.
That's usually where I start and
okay,
work backwards.
okay.
Yeah. All right, so looking at the property, you will see, it's up about $5,000. But that's, like I said, we're taking 1,000 off of that, right? Because we've lowered that value, so it's up about 4,000. But that's, what we have is inflation guard. I've went over this before, but y'all know how this works, right? Drywall was $1 last year. This year it's $1.05, right? Or whatever that price is. So the carriers slightly bump up the values of your buildings each year somewhere. I remember during COVID, we got it up to 10 or 15% at renewals where they were increasing it. But in a normal market, it's anywhere from 4 to 8%. right? So ours actually increased about $1.4 million just because we have over $12 million in assets, right, in property, business, personal property out throughout the city. Does all of that make sense? So we are at about 13.7 million this year when we were at about 13.3 million last year. I mean, excuse me, 12.3 million last year. Any questions?
On the premium, we
Yes,
had
sir.
approved last year $208,000. And then it says the expiring premium was $217,000, so it changed.
No, that's the actual number you paid based on, there are 7 vehicles we added throughout the year, and those vehicles are prorated as they are added, right? So,
You're talking about the 24?
yes, sir.
Last year, okay.
Yeah, so that's what we do. So you were 208, right?
Okay, got it.
But throughout the year, there were, right, you add an auto.
Kept going up.
When you add that auto, let's say that auto for the year, simple terms, is $3,000, right? So if you add it halfway through the year, it's gonna be about $1,500. Does that make sense?
I
Okay.
understand that.
Any more questions on the property? Nope, okay. Crime, here, go ahead.
I got a question about the painting. I'm assuming that's our Penley painting that
Yes,
is
sir.
insured for like 13,000?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
And that relates to that inland marine right there.
Why would that be under inland marine?
So the way this works is when you have something of value like that, if that painting moves, like if you move it to another facility, if we don't have the address right, there will not be coverage because it would technically be like I'm gonna call it like a desk or something, right? But it's a specialized thing that's of value, so you put it on inland marine. I know you hear the word marine, but it actually came from ocean marine, right? So the opposite of ocean is inland, so it's called inland marine coverage. So it's covered anywhere in the US. Does that make sense?
It does make sense.
Okay. So, yeah, speaking of the inland marine, that is up about $800. I can't remember the exact number I told Lisa it was to add it during the year or the prorate, but a good amount of that 700, I think, is the painting, if that makes sense. So it was probably 300 or 400 of that. Next, general liability, which is based on our expenditures, which are, all of that is actually on that second tab that is labeled coverage overview on page 14. And what that is, your expenditures, it's how many miles are in the city, it's based off somewhat of payrolls, land. There's a number of factors based in that. Any questions? The next one is the main line item that I wanted to talk about, which I'm assuming everybody's eye grabs, is the auto. So you actually, Mr. Howard, said the point I was gonna make about the autos. So when you add 7 autos like that, and you're adding them throughout the year, the next year, that premium's gonna be up because you've added those autos and they're prorated on that current year, right? And again, we don't wanna tell you what you set out to accomplish, we wanna tell you what you actually paid the previous year. Does that make sense, right, when you're talking about the 208? So all that to say, our fleet is up 7 autos, which is about 15%, and our auto premium is up about 21%, which means they're taking about a 6% increase on the auto. Does that make sense? Our units were 47 or 48, and now we're at 54.
They're newer, probably.
Yeah, well, that factors in on that pricing as well, but I just meant from the, apples to apples. Also, I will go ahead and relate that all the way down. If you'll look at that umbrella line, it's right down there below the workers' comp. So your umbrella is based on your general liability and your auto liability premium. Your umbrella does not adjust throughout the year. It only changes once a year. So as I was telling Kristen, when we were doing the renewal, our umbrella did not go up last year, even though we added 7 autos. However, you pay the Pied Piper at renewal, right? So that's where that increase comes from on that umbrella. Does that all make sense? Sorry, I'm a guy that likes the acknowledgement to make sure, because I don't want glass eyes. All right, you see the public official went down a good bit. That is, we have had no claims on that, and the state of Georgia, some of the legislation that's come out is, I guess I'm gonna call it more protective, if you will, of public officials, which is good in y'all's shoes, which has created premiums on the insurance, right? They go down as things get, I'm gonna call it safer, if you will, right? Police professional, flat renewal. Kristen, are we still at the same amount of officers as we were last year?
I think they're still short two.
Two?
Maybe if I remember correctly.
Okay.
But we
Yeah.
have added since last year, we've
That-
added.
That's what I was getting at. I think we've actually
We've
added
Yeah.
since last year. So that, as Chief Lee's not here, but I've told him about this, it's literally, it's per officer is what you are charged for. That is actually a rate decrease for us because I'm pretty sure, I think we have one more technically officer than we had at last year's renewal. Does that make sense? So each officer is literally charged an amount of premium to be covered by that police professional.
Let me ask you this, we've got 2 new resource officers for schools.
Okay.
But the county is paid for half of that. Is that taken into consideration?
So does the city pay or does the school system pay?
It's 50/50. The school system pays 50 and we pay 50%.
I will tell you this, from the insurance standpoint, I would assume that the school system is putting that on theirs. I could see how we could be pulled in paying them. That's the guy I'd be asking that question to. From an insurance standpoint, can we cover him? Yes, have no concern whatsoever. But when the city is paying for someone to work at the school, and the school has its own insurance, you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, I understand
I
what
think
you're
it
saying.
should be there, but I would ask him how that relates.
Well,
Okay?
they're paying 50% of the benefits through the city.
Yeah,
So we're
I don't-
providing the benefits, but they're paying 50% of it to us.
So would that not be, we just pay bill there and then we bill the county?
That's what I'm thinking.
Which, we could do that. We just call and say, hey, we have 2 officers that are resource officers. Please add them to the policy. They let us know what it costs, and y'all can turn around and charge.
Well, in addition, they're not exclusively school resource officers either, because during non-school periods
Correct. Are
of
they
the
one of
year,
our, they are
they're
our officer?
working for the
Yes,
PD.
then I would argue, yeah, that, I think Mr. Casey answered that one. That's how Preston would do it, but again, I consult.
And they're on our payroll.
Yeah, that's where I always get concerned. If it's your payroll and something goes wrong,
We can
it's
just
probably
turn
getting
around.
pulled in.
We can just submit that.
Okay?
Thank you.
Very good question. Herbicide, pesticide, that's pretty obvious, right? That's our crews out there spraying the sides of the roads, things like that. Abuse and molestation, we had, when was that, Kristen, that we had that guy come out and we had to go through it for all the rec stuff? That was probably 3 years ago or something. I will tell y'all, what did he say that standalone policy was? Didn't he say somewhere around $13,000? So I will tell you, in insurance, loyalty to a carrier creates better coverage, and this is a great example of that. So as long as y'all have been with Selective, if we move from Selective and try to go back to them, they would not offer abuse and molestation to us. It's just not, because we've been with them since, we've been, I think, 8 years with Selective, so that puts you before COVID. The largest lawsuit ever against a church, I don't know if you know that, out in California for the Catholic thing, it was a, I think, $2 billion claim? Yeah, so that's coming from the church and on top of insurance. So that rattles everybody's cages, right? And with that, this is a great example. I understand it's $2,000, but you deal with kids every day. you want the coverage, you take that until they do not offer it anymore. Does that make sense? And I remember we had to make some updates to some of our systems and how we process, like, with children and things like that, but I think that is fully worth it. So,
That's a small amount for what you get.
that's agreed. Next line item, unless anybody has any questions, is the work comp. You will see that is slightly up, but that is also based on the fact that our payrolls are up about 23%. I think the email y'all actually had this number up slightly more than that, and that was just me having time to go back to the underwriter and chat, right? And I think they cut about $4,000 or $5,000 off. Any questions on the work comp? And you will see at the, well, you'll see if we look at the work comp page, your mod actually dropped, which is a good thing. A mod is how you compare in your industry to others in your state, right? So in other words, other municipal accounts that have police officers and everybody in between. Any questions on that? Umbrella I already touched on. Cyber, we have a $10 decrease. Yeah. Yeah. Only decrease I got for you today, guys, other than the public official. Any questions on those? And you'll see at the bottom, again, adding the painting, we added the 7 autos, the payroll, 440-ish thousand up, and we've already talked over the changes at the bottom. I did speak to Kristen on this. I wanted to touch on this, the building over here. When we bought that building, Mr. Osborne and I kind of discussed on how we wanted to cover that, and he kind of wanted to put the number he bought it for instead of what the replacement cost is. And again, remember, it is to rebuild your building. I will tell y'all, I think that 812 is a lot closer to what that building over there would cost to rebuild than the 578, if we're being honest. Now, if y'all want me to go back to the underwriter and argue, I can, and I will, but I am not a appraisal expert. But if y'all wanted to have somebody look at that for the replacement cost, I bet you it's a lot closer to 812 than it is to 578. And then I've already discussed the 400 to $1 million. They've already put it back at 400,000 for us. So we're good there.
That was on Montgomery over there?
Yes, sir.
Oh, the old water?
Yeah, those buildings, those 2 buildings, and then the shed.
Well, they were wow, now that was like increase of. what,
So I was telling Kristen this, what I think they did is they ran it on a different building that is close to there somewhere, because I had, I do not, but I had where, they sent it to me and they started talking about like cabinets, like the value of cabinets and windows and things. And like I said, I wrote over there before I came here and I took a picture of it and I sent it to the underwriter and said, this is not $1 million facility. No offense to the place, but, right, we both, everyone here knows it's not $1 million facility.
Okay, on that summary page at the bottom, so what is the correct amount for the proposed premium?
It is $253,010.
And then very little,
Yeah, it's $1,075. It dropped for that $600,000 in coverage.
so we're still an increase of about $35,000.
That's right. And that is with those, again, I will point out those 7 autos, because those 7 autos are, if your unit count is about it's a little over $2,000 a unit, that's $14,000 in premium right there on those 7 autos.
And our current coverage expires May 30th, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
So we wouldn't have time to even bid this out. Seems like we get in this predicament a lot if we weren't happy with that. So next year, I would suggest we have a second proposal regardless if we're gonna be ready or not with this one.
So I will throw out the process of how that works. We start our process in February, and it takes a while for everyone to collect information and things like that. Once that information is collected, there are 6, in essence, markets that have the ability to write you. I'll rattle them off if you need me to.
No, we'll
Oh.
just get started in February next year, and we'll have yours and someone else's.
Understood. Any other questions?
On the summary page on anything. you still-
That's what, I wanted to make sure we didn't have any other questions on that. And I can run through each line item on this, and you'll start on that coverage overview. Everybody there? Page 5 is just all the named insureds, which is just the city. I always clarify to everyone, all the property we have covered needs to be in the city's name, and all of the autos we're covering needs to be in the city's name. Work comp, I know that y'all only pay yourself, or everyone is paid through the city. Following page is a list of our locations. Which includes, and again, I know that we handed you these, but all the parcels are updating everything as of today. All the digits are correct. I think we had one street that we had, what was it, 240?
301, we had down twice. 301 Villa Rosa Way, is that the one?
No,
you
there
said?
was, I thought there was,
Oh, you had 240 Rome Street twice instead of 240 and 280.
that's what it
So you
is.
corrected
We
that.
had to have 280. That was the other one.
Yep.
Yeah.
Line item number 2 is 574 Oak Tree Road.
That's-
This is line item 4.
Yeah, so one's the irrigation well and one is the actual plant.
All right, the following page are just additional interest. So it's anybody we like provide a certificate to that asks for additional coverages or lost payees, lien holders. Hertz obviously is for us going out, probably renting equipment, I'm assuming, right? They ask for coverage to show that we have proof of coverage on our inland marine for rented equipment at a certain value, and we do that. Does that make sense? Following page just lays out the way our property is set up. So our property is set up on blanket building and blanket business personal property on agreed value. Agreed value suspends co-insurance. Co-insurance is a penalty for being underinsured at the time of a loss. So if you all go home and look at your homeowner's policies, there is a co-insurance factor on there. So if you take a $200,000 home and double the size of it and try and turn in a claim on that, they can then say, hey, you did not insure your home to full value, even though you added that piece. Now, if you call them and tell them, I now have a $400,000 home, you are still within those parameters. We get that fully removed because y'all have a lot of moving pieces, and it's very hard for us to adjust values. That's also why we blanket the building and blanket the business personal property, right? It's one big bucket instead of multiple individual buckets. Any questions there?
Okay, so the $100,000 coverage that we've got on contents on this building here, if we have a
You-
total fire loss, it would.
You have $13,782,000 to pull from. Does that make sense?
I understand.
It is not yet, though we have this building listed at whatever we got it for and the contents list. That is not the amount that will be paid out in the event of a loss. It is, you pull from $13,700,000. That right there is the broadest coverage in property insurance that you can get, is the way y'all have it, which I would suggest you keep it that way. Any questions on that page? Oh, and I forgot, I forgot what year it was that we talked about the K-9 coverage. I made sure that we put that on the proposal so y'all knew you did have the coverage. Was that, okay, that was you.
And that's last year.
Okay, following page, these are again, values. The one that says warehouse obviously is back down to 400,000.
Can I ask you a question on that one, though? That one is that the new shed, or the new one that was put in?
Are you talking about the one you sent me the picture of?
Yeah.
That one, I will put it this way, that 400,000 is gonna cover that.
Well, I'm just saying we didn't need coverage for that because of what we paid.
That's what I was, yeah, that's what I'm saying.
So I'm saying if it's
Yeah.
on here, it doesn't need to be on
Yeah,
there.
yeah, no. I didn't put it on there, but again, remember that $13 million number?
Yes.
They're gonna cover a $3,800 ship.
Well, I was just making sure that, because I thought that
I
was
get
an
what you're
extra
saying.
ad.
Yeah, no,
I was
we did
like,
not add that. When you sent me the picture, I knew we weren't, no offense, I wasn't, yeah, you get where I'm
I
going.
was like,
Yeah. Page 10, again, page 10, page 11, page 12 are all gonna be values associated. And we try, over the years, I've taken pictures, right, going out and seeing all these. We try to label them so that y'all can see where they are. Any questions on those? Okay. Page 13 is your general liability. You have $1 million occurrence with a $3 million aggregate, which means we can have 3 $1 million claims within a year, and then the general liability limits are exhausted. However, you have $1 million umbrella sitting over your general liability, so technically per occurrence, you have $2 million. Does all of that make sense? Okay. Then you'll see the police professional, pesticide, herbicide, public official, employee benefits, abuse and molestation, and we also have a little loss of wages. And at the bottom again, that's employee benefits. So your benefits plan, if you forget to put somebody on it, and you, like the city is taking the money out, right? But then somebody gets cancer or something like that, and they go to the doctor and say, hey, where are my benefits at? That's what that coverage is for. Does that make sense? Okay. Page 14, we've already been over. Page 15, auto. Most important part of this page is right there under symbols, where it says bodily injury and property damage. We have symbol 1, which means any auto. So if Miss Haley is going to the post office and hits a school bus full of kids on the way, her insurance goes first. City steps in next because she was going to that post office for the city, right? Works for all your employees every which way. You want it that way. You also have hired and non-owned. So if Miss Alexis goes and rents a vehicle because she is at a conference, we have coverage for that. You don't have to buy the insurance through them. They're gonna ask you for a certificate of insurance. We can provide that. Mindy does that all the time. That's hired and non-owned. And then, again, bodily injury, property damage to third party, medical expense. I'm riding with Mr. Bracknell. He hits the brakes a little hard. I get a goose egg on my head. Instead of me turning in a $1 million auto claim, he says, why don't you go get your head checked out? $5,000 or $10,000 right there. You call Preston, and we turn in a claim and say, hey, here's the medical bills. Mr. Bracknell was taking I don't know, you name it, to Joel's Barbecue, hit the brakes a little quick, right? He's got a goose egg. We just wanted to check on him. Sorry, Mr. Bracknell, I don't mean to put you in a. I'm moving down the line on these examples because there's a lot of them. Uninsured or underinsured motorist, mayor, you get. So the mayor walks outside and his car is totaled down the side. He has no idea who did it, right? He's in one of our company cars, right? I don't know if you drive one. If you're in your personal car, obviously yours goes first. We would step in after. But let's say you do have a company car. You go out there, see somebody sideswiped it. We don't have any videos or anything. That's an uninsured motorist claim. We have $1 million in coverage right there. Now, Miss Lisa is out driving and somebody hits her and they have state minimum limits and she's in a F-350 for some reason that's on our schedule. That F-350 is not getting covered by $25,000 in insurance. What you're gonna do is you're gonna call Preston and we're gonna turn that in on our insurance and we're gonna subrogate back against that other carrier, but you have $1 million in coverage right there. because the state minimums in Georgia are $25.50. That's not covering most of your new F-150s. We went over hard and not on, comprehensive in collision, comprehensive, obviously, act of God, right? Deer, catches fire, anything like that. Collision, we hit somebody and we want to get our car fixed. Make sense? Any more questions on this page? Okay. All right, page 16, 17, and 18 are all the autos. Any questions on that? I will say, I feel like Mr. Howard's been good at pointing out when we've had autos. He's like, y'all bought a new da-da-da-da-da. I think he did that last year. There was one we had missed. I think it was one of the police cars.
We've got a piece of equipment that I didn't see listed.
Well, that's, so just so you know, equipment is a separate, that's that inland marine that I was talking about, because remember, your pieces of equipment can jump on any auto and go anywhere, but they're not tagged for road use. So they go on that inland marine. Anything tagged for road use goes on an auto policy. Page 19 and page 20 are all of our drivers. I know this changes probably on a pretty regular basis, totally fine. Just always update us as you put someone into a car. If they come out and you lose them, you know, and they go to another job, I'll be honest, it's not as desperate for me to get that, but if you have somebody new to add, we want to know that they're in the car, because in the event of an accident, we want to be able to go back to the driver's list and say they are on there, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I was took about 7 of them off of there and added some more.
Yes, sir.
Josh,
And
you
there's-
already purchased the, hydrovac? I don't see it listed on
That's the one that I didn't see on the list, was the jetter.
So is it tagged for road use?
It's pulled behind the truck.
It's pulled behind a truck.
there. It'll be on the equipment for the railroad.
So.
Page 21.
So the next page, page 21, I do not see anything about a HVAC,
Hydrovac.
hydrovac? Yeah, HVAC.
I see on here it says.
Do you have the, like the, sale of it, like the bill of sale?
We got a deal on that thing, but the replacement value is like $1,100,000.
We purchased it through, Kansas City.
If you can send me the bill of sale on it, that'll give me like the VIN number, all that stuff. Now, just to confirm, is this thing sitting on a trailer, or is it?
It's a trailer.
It is a trailer. It is bolted down to the trailer.
It's a hydrovac.
Yeah, I get what you're.
Yeah.
So it's just a trailer though, it's not the actual truck hydrovac?
No, it's not.
Okay, so it's a detachable
Right.
piece of equipment?
Yeah.
Got you. Okay, yeah, shoot me what you got on that,
Okay.
and I'll get that added.
Okay.
Yeah,
And then I'll
And-
get with you, there's a couple drivers we have to remove.
understood. And like you were saying on the replacement cost, what I'll do is I'll probably give you a call after you send that to me to kind of get an idea of the real value of it, because we're gonna, what year is it, do you know? So if it's anything within the past 5 years, we need to put the replacement value on it. Now, if it's older than that, if it's a 2012 or something, we could probably put the value you have on it, because they're only gonna give you actual cash value for anything older than 5 years.
Yeah, I think it's what.
Then I would, tell me what the real number is on that.
Okay.
All right, we discussed drivers. Page 21, equipment. I'm I'm assuming I probably need to look back your way. You tell me if all those, did you look at page 21? Yes, ma'am. Those are all of our pieces of equipment we have covered.
Lisa, do you know if we got a new mower on there for the rec department? Wasn't that an X-Mark? There's two of those on there. So I'm assuming,
One was Josh's and one was ours, yeah. Because that was last year we put on
That's what I was about to say. I think we did that last year, put those 2 mowers on there.
bought another one. Did we buy a new mower?
Well, that's why I was
Not
asking,
yet.
because I know we put those 2 on last year. So we don't have one yet? Okay.
I'm sorry.
there.
Any questions? Okay. Following page is work comp. So the way these coverages work, that coverage part A, work comp statutory. So each state, my thumb is worth a number, right? If I lose it in the state of Georgia, it is worth a number. In Alabama, it's a different number. Florida, it's a different, every state's a different number, right? But all that to say, work comp is based out of the state and there is no limit. So there's no limit on work comp. So if I'm working here, I go up on the roof and I fall off and I become paraplegic the rest of my life, Eliza, Howie, and Dottie, my 3, 4, and 1-year-old, there's gonna be payout to them on my behalf, right? Because I can't work, I can't make money, all that stuff. Again, worst case scenario, but that's in essence what coverage A is for. Coverage B is for if I do that and my wife decides to sue the city of Temple because I can't play baseball with Howie or gymnastics with Eliza, right? And that your umbrella sits over that $1 million limit. And then part C, y'all do not have to worry about because y'all are not in a monopolistic state, which are Ohio, Washington, Wyoming, and North Dakota. We do have the drug-free workplace certificate, which gives us 7.5% off immediately off the bottom line premium. That's a good thing. I would throw this one out, which I've talked about in the past. Y'all have the ability to take up to a deductible on the work comp of $2,500. We do not really have a severity issue. A frequency issue. I think we've had 1 claim in the past 5 years on work comp. If you take on that deductible, you think you've only paid $2,500 one time, you've collected more than that over those 5 years by taking said deductible. Does that make sense? Right, so if you, right now, what's our number, 43, right, or 40, 45? If we take a deductible, it might drop it $1,000, but if you go 5 years, that's $5,000 you've saved. If you only have 1 claim, it's $2,500, yes, you've paid back, but you're still $2,500 to the good. Does that make sense? I'm throwing that out because I do think, I tell most clients, if you do not have frequency and you only have like claim every once in a while, you need to take the deductible because it's gonna work to your favor in the long run. Now, if your cash flow is an issue, but I feel like we could pull $2,500, right? But if we can't, I understand. If cash flow is an issue, do not do it, right? Because you're gonna turn in that claim to the carrier. They're gonna then turn around and send you a bill for $2,500 if it's more than that. Less than that, whatever the number is. But if you can handle that, I would suggest we at least look at that number. Which I could flip that within, I can have that to y'all tomorrow morning sometime. And I know we hadn't talked about that, but I saw it as we were on that page. After that, following page 23, payrolls. These are all our audited payrolls from last year. So I am betting these are below where we will be at the end of this year, if that makes sense. Kristen and I have talked about this. We always end up with an audit because throughout the year, I don't know when we talk pay raises or when that is done. But see, we're working off of the renewal as of today, and these numbers are based on the audit from last year, because when we renewed this year, our payrolls were below the audit. Does that make sense? So we just went ahead and took the audit payrolls, but Kristen and I have been over this multiple times. There's always an increase within our payroll, and if there's gonna be, us estimating out instead of just seeing what we've done could help us in the premium cycle of this, right? Because when we have the audit next year, if there's a $6,000 audit, you gotta pay that in one chunk instead of getting to pay it, right? These all are financed with no interest, right? So you get to pay that over 10, 12 payments if you choose. However, that one payment, right, comes in next year, and then y'all probably have to do adjustments to things, right? To say, hey, we're $6,000 audit on our work comp. If we go ahead and project those out instead of us just taking audited numbers, we probably wouldn't have that much of an audit every year, if that makes sense. And to clarify, it's the main line item is the police officer, right? So your clerical work are pennies for every dollar that you pay, whereas obviously a police officer is more like dollars per every $100 you pay, if that makes sense. But that's just something, again, I point out because I know we always get audits on that. Following page, umbrella, 2 million. I said 1 million earlier, that was my fault. 2 million umbrella. Those sit over your general liability, auto, employers, police, and public official. Following page is crime. That's employee theft, inside, outside robbery, money insecurities on and outside the premise. Next page, 26, our cyber policy, still with Beasley, $1 million. There's a number of liabilities there between networks and media liability, telephone fraud. Any questions on page 26? No. 27, those are just disclosures for war. We have to put those in because that is by Beasley's terms. Following page 28 are additional coverages. Kristen and I have went over those. 29, the rest of this, to be honest, is insurance stuff that claims disclosures, making sure that your carrier's AM Best A-rated, which Selective is an A-rated company. Let's see. Payments. If you owe the carrier, or if the carrier owes you, we will fight to get the carrier. Marsh McClendon Agency doesn't pay, right? Proposal disclaimer, if the mayor has a Ferrari on the schedule that we don't know about, we can't cover it, right? Client contracts, if y'all ever have like subs wanting to come in and work for y'all and you want me to review their insurance, actually similar to what y'all were talking about with the engineers and them having qualifications, I'm glad to tell you, right, if their certificate meets snuff, if you will. That's all I have. I'm sorry that probably took longer than I should have.
Any other questions? All right, thank you, sir.
We do a one-time payment on that last year.
All at once.
You can, or you can do up to, I think it's 12 equal payments if you want. And there's no interest on that, so. However y'all want to do it, but that's very flexible in our world. Thank y'all for the time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think we have done one.
Last year we did one payment.
Yeah.
All right, item 3, approve the annual renewal of the City of Temple government's commercial insurance policy with the Marsh McLennan Agency with this new insurance and risk management document providing coverage for the 12-month period starting Friday, May 30, 2025.
I'll make that motion.
That was you.
Second, yes.
All right, motion by Mr. Brightnell, seconded by Mr. Walden. Any discussion? All in favor, let me know by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, the same sign. Motion carries 5-0. That completes our new business agenda. Closing comments, Mr. Russell, Mr. Walden.
I'm assuming that will be paid in one payment, right? On the premium, that's what we want to do.
Can, I mean,
It's fine.
y'all, as y'all direct, I mean, it doesn't matter. Because there's no extra cost to split it up.
Not to do that, I just say get it out of the way.
Get it out of the way.
That's what I was.
All
We're
right,
not drawing any interest on it.
That's right.
no objection, then, okay. Ms. Brightnell,
No,
Ms. Bowles,
none.
Ms. Miller.
No, thank you.
All right, then a motion, no executive session. So a motion to adjourn is in order.
Make a motion, we adjourn. Second.
All in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, the same sign. Then we are adjourned. We yield to the Planning Commission.